So this morning I want to talk about what is tantric Christianity. Tantric Christianity is a form of religious experience which uses tantric methods to enjoy the truth of our always already completely given salvation in Jesus Christ. And so we use tantric methods to deepen the enjoyment and the realization of our already given salvation, which amounts to experiencing what the New Age might call Christ consciousness. So it's using tantric means to experience Christ consciousness, to experience mystical union with Christ. So this is a very deep and beautiful thing, and a lot of people are attracted to tantric Christianity because they have a deep relationship with Jesus in their hearts. They can feel the truth and the beauty of Jesus. Excuse me, fizzy water. But they've been disenchanted with regular churches. So I grew up in a Roman Catholic church that was filled with dry, dusty, miserable people. Everybody was miserable, and every other day there was another breaking, horrible sexual abuse scandal. And it just became clear to me there that really the vibrant Holy Spirit healing power of Jesus was not there, and that I would need to find another way to connect with that truth of the incarnated word, the incarnation of divinity into humanity. A lot of people who had that experience, like me, veered off into deep time spent with Buddhism, neo-paganism, every kind of flavor. And there's gorgeous, valuable things in those traditions. And many people like me have found that still the Christian symbols have a deep anchor in my heart, in my soul. Thousands of years, my ancestors were practicing Christians. And Carl Jung said that the symbols and the practices of Buddhism and Hinduism will just never really serve for people with that kind of ancestry, with that kind of foundation in a Christian symbolism and ancestry. If you go and try to reach liberation through Buddhism or Hinduism or through some, you go and become Lakota, you do sweat lodges all the time. You'll have wonderful experiences, but it won't be what you really need to get in touch with the deepest layers of your soul, because the deepest layers of your soul have been informed by your ancestry. And this was very true for me. I noticed that I spent hundreds, thousands of hours in Buddhist meditation and Buddhist meditation centers. I never had a direct dream experience of the Buddha, but very quickly after I began doing tantric Christian practices, I had direct, huge magical dream experiences, and I had encounters with angels, encounters with other magicians in the Rosicrucian tradition and the tradition of the Holy Grail. And it just became obvious to me that, wow, this is something that my spiritual, soulful DNA is wound to respond to. So I've been very deep on this dive into Tantric Christianity for years now. And I'll say a little bit more. So you might be wondering, what is Tantra? We use tantric methods to experience the truth of our always already freely given salvation in Jesus, and to go deeper into that mystery of the incarnation, crucifixion, and resurrection. 5 principles that we can understand in connection with Tantra. Number 1 is that everything in experience, we regard it as a tool, as a helper on the path to that deepening spiritual union. In other words, there's no obstacles, there's only helpers on the path. So, and that includes everything. That includes bodily sexuality, that includes bodily pleasure, that includes all of the pains and traumas and wounding of life. We find a way to alchemically relate to those so that take us deeper into union with Christ, and we don't look down on anything, and we don't see anything as being separate or irredeemable or unredeemed. All demons, the devil, everybody's redeemed. The ultimate redemption of everything and everyone is completely taken care of already. That's what the crucifixion, that's what the incarnation, crucifixion, resurrection did, is it absolutely guaranteed that complete redemption and salvation. So that means that our hearts are truly free to just love even the very dark and devilish parts of ourselves and bring them into redemption, bring them into conscious relationship with Christ within. And in doing that, we fulfill the aim of Solomonic magic. We rebuild the Temple of Solomon inside of ourselves. We put all of the demons of our nature under the authority of the angels, and they're able to build something absolutely beautiful. So putting the demons of our nature in touch with the angels regarding every obstacle as part of the path. So another dimension of tantric Christianity that separates it from more conventional Christianity is that tantric Christianity focuses a lot on direct experience. So direct mystical encounters with the divine, which can be brought about through ritual theurgies, which can be brought about through meditation, which can be brought about through contemplative prayer, which can be brought about through experiences with plant medicine, which can happen through mystery school initiation, all sorts of ways of accessing that deeper direct experience. And one of my favorite ways is to just go into, I have a whole tantric sadhana that I do called the Jesus practice that I teach in Red Magic, which is all about dissolving my usual conception of myself into the Holy Grail of Babylon. The Whore of Babylon holds the Holy Grail that's filled with Jesus's blood. So I dissolve myself imaginatively into that, and I re-emerge as the bride of Christ, as the new Jerusalem, wearing a beautiful stainless white wedding gown. And then I just commune, and along the same lines as the Song of Solomon, with Jesus. I open up to experiencing myself as the completely innocent, completely redeemed, utterly beloved of the bridegroom. And it's a deep, erotic, illuminating, uplifting experience. I highly recommend it. And what that does is that gives me a direct, felt, bodily, somatic, erotic experience of divine union, of divine truth. And that's priceless. That's worth so much more than just intellectual, dry intellectual theology, which is a lot of what conventional churches offer. Also a lot of shame and spiritual abuse. I mean, it's not funny, but a lot of us have encountered that in conventional churches, so I'm naming it. Another dimension that makes tantric Christianity different is, like I just mentioned, it involves the use of imagination, visualization, working with subtle energies, working with the subtle body. Everything that you can find in the Vajrayana tantric techniques in Buddhism, that same set of technology applies to Christianity. So another interesting point is that everything that I'm referring to here as tantric, the word tantra obviously comes from Sanskrit and has a lineage in Hindu and Buddhist roots. And there's actually a term for that same thing in the Western tradition, in the Platonic Christian tradition, and that is theurgy. And I just didn't use it in the title of this video because hardly anybody knows what theurgy is, but theurgy means God working. And a huge part of theurgy is ritually enacting the creative moves of the creator as the cosmos was made, which helps bring us to the memory of our own union with the creator. So, where was I? Oh, yeah, theurgy. The way that theurgy works and the way that Tantra works is the same. Theurgy is just the name for Tantra in the West. In fact, recently there was a book published. I'm excited to read it. I still haven't read it, by Gregory Shaw. I think it's called Hellenic Tantra, and it's about use of theurgy in the Hellenic world. He did a book called Theurgy and the Soul, which is a reading of Iamblichus, who was very influential on church fathers. And yes, so part of theurgy slash tantra and part of the major hermetic inheritance in tantric Christianity is this focus on the integration of opposites. So you'll see in conventional Christianity a lot of the only ways that they ever talk about God really are in these masculine ways. And yes, Mary ascended to heaven, but she's a lesser kind of mediator. And yeah, that's even for the Catholics. So most Protestants, you can't even get to be that excited about Mary. So there's this kind of disintegration that we find in conventional Christianity, where this huge emphasis on the masculine dimension, like I said, tend to be very dry and intellectual unless you're working specifically with like a magical form, like charismatic Pentecostal Christianity can be very magical, and I love that about it. But a lot of mainline Protestant and Catholic churches are very, very dry. And part of that is they are working with theurgy. The Eucharist is a theurgy, absolutely. It's the making present of the Christ, the body and blood of Christ. Obviously, that's a magical action, yes, but it's a very elevated theurgical action, and it's of such elevation that it doesn't have a dramatic impact on most souls in this materialist age. And when Iamblichus, for example, really recognized that most people need relationship with their ancestors, need direct spiritual, sacrifices to their ancestors, to the spirits of the local land, to the spirits associated, to their own holy guardian angels. Most people need that. They need to see rituals and sacrifices. They need fire, and they need to have ritual materials that are hands-on, that are engaging their senses, because it's through the senses that most people are able to have a symbolic activation through the witnessing of ritual action, which then wakes up our larger soul and smooths our soul out and makes it more able to accurately reflect the truth of wholeness. And that's how the soul progresses up to union with the highest levels of God, with the highest levels of the logos and the eros that move the universe. So Iamblichus recognized that, but the way that theurgy is practiced in most churches does not get to that level of embodiment that actually most people genuinely need in order to have their spirituality awakened and elevated. So I think that's a big reason that plenty of people these days are drawn to neo-paganism, because there's a lot that's, hands-on and beautiful in neo-paganism, and they involve, ancestors and everything. So what I'm trying to say is that tantric Christianity also involves connection with one's own personal ancestors. It involves connection with the daimons, the spirits of the land that you're on. It involves connection with your own holy guardian angel. It's this union, this integrative union that's being performed. And likewise, so like I said, this integration of the opposites. A big thing that this also connects to is Jungian ideas about individuation and what it takes for one to become truly embodied, truly incarnated, truly alive as a soul. So tantric Christianity is a form of Christianity that encourages individuation. So and this is different from collective Christianity or conventional Christianity, in the sense that a lot of conventional Christianity you'll find is all about fitting in, right? It's all about matching certain standards of behavior, believing in the same dogmatic ideas, not rocking the boat, having this very sort of hierarchical relationship between the preacher or the pastor or the priest and the flock. And what Jung clearly recognized, and what I think is absolutely kind of self-evidently true, is that this is not the time for that anymore. That age has passed. It's dead. That was the age of Pisces. That was the old Aeon. That was the That's over. That's not happening again. People, it's the time for people to have authentic connection with the truth within themselves rather than accepting some sort of hierarchical thing. The tantric hermetic integration of inside and outside, masculine and feminine, seeing nothing as beyond redemption, holding to the truth of universal salvation, which is what one of the primary church fathers, Origen, along with St. Gregory of Palamas, taught universal salvation, which is the idea that nobody burns in hell forever, but rather that every soul is destined for union with God, including the demons, including the devil, including everybody in hell, all ultimately receives union with God. And in fact, hell is really just the experience of God's love when you're unwilling to truly let God's love into your heart. Being loved feels like hell when you don't want to be loved, when you hate yourself. So, those are some major differences. Another point with Tantric Christianity is the belief that sanctification is possible for ordinary people in regular life, and that it doesn't necessarily look like what the Catholics imagined. It looks like people becoming completely themselves, completely congruent and lit up with their own deep creative power, their own deep union with Jesus, their own deep connection to signs and omens and guidance from their nighttime dreams. All of this, this kind of sanctification to the point that one can become a healer, to the point that one can have miraculous things spontaneously happen in one's life and in one's presence, that one can be a conduit for miracles, that one can transmit an energy that's so marvelous that it's rearranging the collective around you. That kind of sanctification, that kind of deep, deep, complete, thorough enjoyment of your salvation, that kind of deep, deep enjoyment of complete grace, complete infinite innocence recognized in yourself and everyone. That is sainthood. That's sanctity. That's sanctification. And that is widely available. Tantric Christianity recognizes that as widely available, as something that's not just for people living on a mountaintop or in a monastery or in a nunnery, or it's not just available to male people. It's not just available to people whose sexuality only fits within certain prescribed societal conventions. It's available freely to everyone because Christ incarnated, was crucified, and was resurrected. That's the good news. The good news is that everybody can partake of this mystery, and everybody is completely already redeemed and healed by it, and everybody can deepen their enjoyment of it to such an extent that liberation is experienced, liberation from suffering, liberation from guilt, liberation from alienation, liberation from broken relationships, from depression, anxiety, self-hatred, addictions and compulsions of various kinds. All of that, liberation is possible from all of that in this lifetime. You can live in grace, and you can be a conduit for miracles and a conduit for grace. So that's basically what I have to say today, just answering some questions about what is Tantric Christianity. I know that I could go on for hours and that I could have much more to say about this, but if this interests you, I'm going to post this onto my Instagram wall, so please hop into the comments on this post on my wall and share with me your thoughts, your questions, your own experiences with maybe a traditional Christian upbringing and your spiritual journey since then, and what is calling you back to being interested in Christian symbolism. I think it's a really good thing that a lot of people are getting interested in Christian symbolism again. I think there is a way that for us inheritors of the West, We absolutely need to redeem Christianity. We need a redemptive relationship with these symbols that are so foundational to who we are, to the fabric of our world. You know, secularism, materialism, scientism, atheism tried to act like none of that mattered. But I think that all of us, people with spiritual sensitivity, even if our journeys for a long time have been more in the vein of New Age or Neo Pagan or Buddhist or yoga, Hindu stuff, we see the beauty in Christianity. We see that a reclamation and a redemption of its truths is possible. And we are interested. Yeah, we're going to find it. We're finding it together. So thank you so much for tuning in and listening. If you share this live with other friends of yours who think might be interested, if you go ahead and follow me, that would be awesome. I'm offering a course called Battle Magick. Battle Magick will be available the second week of May 2025, and I will be posting more about it. But basically, Battle Magick is a deep expedition into into meeting the enemy where the enemy lives, which is within. So it's about withdrawing all of our projections of evil or badness or wrongness from other people, from the world, dialoguing with the parts of us that are very confused, and bringing ourselves back into a deeper integration, a deeper wholeness. So that's a huge part of Battle Magick, is the recollection of projections in the Jungian sense. So that's shadow work, shadow integration on a very intense scale that most people never get to. And then the next thing that we do in Battle Magick is we do a very advanced form of theurgy called the sphere working. So the sphere working is designed for magicians around the world to cooperate together to bring the light of, the way, the truth, and the life, to bring the energy of healing and integration and grace and love as a predominant energy into the collective consciousness, to actively combat a whole lot of the vast negativity and confusion and disintegration. So the sphere working is a working that produces integration in the collective unconscious. That is its point. And it needs dedicated practitioners to be doing it, or else, I mean, if, humans are the conduits of miracles, we are the way that heaven comes to be on earth. Jesus taught us to pray, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. He taught that prayer because humans have to live and pray that prayer. The kingdom of heaven only comes through our participation. So the sphere working is a means of participating in bringing God's will to the earth and bringing the flourishing of, just wholeness, integration, genuine wholesomeness, genuine happiness to our own psyches and to the earth. So I'll post more about Battle Magick. I hope you ask me any questions. If you have them, I can answer those. And it will be open the second week in May. Thank you for joining me this morning. Bye-bye.